All right, welcome back to WMA Scene Now with your host, Chuck Stevenson, and welcome to episode 84 of the WMA Scene Report, our regular show where we go over just about everything going on within the world of the women's divisions of mixed martial arts. You know, news, reviews, previews, rankings, a little bit of everything. Tonight, we're going to talk about consistency in MMA, from all the way to the fighters, to the promoters, all the way down to the fans and everything. So we're going to talk about consistency. But first, let's start where we always start with the fight reviews for the past weekend. So let's get started. First up, we're going to LFA number 97. Had a couple of ladies bouts. First up was a flyweight bout between Claire Guthrie defeated Nadine Mandial via unanimous decision. Guthrie climbed to 2-1. Mandial fell to 1-2. Not a bad scrap here. Guthrie got off some nice hard punches on Mandial. Looked pretty good there. Not a bad fight at all. I only watched tangentially, so I can't go too detailed onto it. It's on LFA's Facebook, by the way. It's not on Fight Pass where their main cards are. Then at strawweight, Loveth Young defeated Kelly D'Angelo via TKO, minute 36 seconds of the second round. Young climbed to 3-1. D'Angelo fell to 4-4. Another nice finish for Loveth Young. Done reviews on several of her fights before. She is a Muay Thai monster, just hard hitting for strawweight, just very hard hitting, sits down on her punches, mixes the strikes to the body and the head, which she did here to get D'Angelo off balance and off her guard and delivered the finish in the second round. Just very nice finish for her. The only downside to this was that she faced someone who had fought her last, 3 fights, I think, 3 or 4 fights at atomweight. So hopefully LFA finds a legit strawweight for her to face next time. I'd actually like to see the rematch between her and Vanessa Demopoulos. I think that fight would go differently this time. Demopoulos won by split decision the first time. Then we move on to UFC on ABC1. Had 2 ladies bouts. First up, Vanessa Mello defeated Sarah Morris via unanimous decision. Just a god-awful fight. Terrible. Morris lost the fight, but she got a 30-25 decision over the air that she punched. So just like I said, just a terrible fight. If you haven't watched it, don't bother. Then on the same card, Jocelyn Edwards defeated Yanan Wu in a bantamweight bout via unanimous decision. Edwards climbed to 10-2. Wu fell to 11-4. This bout was much more entertaining in that it was a lot busier than the previous bout on the card. I thought it was fairly sloppy, though. Both ladies threw a lot of punches from, the waist level. Wu was just throwing very erratically, and whereas Edwards was definitely the cleaner of the two as far as, consistency and everything. Seemed to tire out in the second half of each round, but she also took this fight on a week and a half notice, or 2 weeks notice. So I'm not going to hold that against her until, I see if that's a consistent problem. Nice debut, though, for Edwards. And then on UFC Fight Night, Chiesa versus Magny. Manon Fiorot on the right there defeated Victoria Leonardo via TKO, the head kick and punches. 4 minutes, 8 seconds of the second round. Fiorot climbed to 6-1. Leonardo fell to 8-3. Like I said, Leonardo likes to get into brawls, and Fiorot hits hard. So not that surprising. Fiorot, man, she had a definite physical, size and just all around athletic and strength advantage too. She is scary at flyweight. Big for flyweight, powerful, sits down on her punches. Needs to really clean up her technique, though. I disagree with the commentary team that kept calling her. She was like, oh, she's so technical. No, her shot selection needed work. She would throw a few spinning kicks she threw, just missed by a mile because they were ill-timed. I think she needs to clean it up on the technical side. But just with the athletic ability and power alone, she can go far. Speaking of athletic ability and power, also at flyweight, Viviane Araujo on the right there defeated Roxanne Modafferi via unanimous decision. Araujo climbed to 10-2. Modafferi fell to 25-18. Nice performance by Araujo. Outworked Roxy on the feet for the first 2 rounds. But, man, Araujo, I think her cardio problems are fairly consistent. I think she spends too much time trying to finish her, and to the point that when she doesn't, she just wasted all that energy throwing big punches, and then she fades hard. And she definitely faded hard in the 3rd round because Modafferi started piecing her up a little bit. Nothing landed really hard there, but Modafferi started piecing her up. Modafferi, her biggest problem is always going to be her vision. Definitely had some trouble, always has trouble with her range. So she was having trouble, getting into range and getting to the clinch that she needed. And even when she did, Araujo was able to, outmuscle her a little bit. Not that Araujo is completely devoid of technique. She's not. But I think she definitely uses her natural athletic ability and strength to get her out of problem situations that her technical skills wouldn't be able to. Nope, that's for later. Alexandra Bello and Griffin Fisk making her debut. Then we have a pair of strawweight bouts. First, you have Marisol Lopez taking 1-2, taking on Valerie Wong, coming in 0-1. And then also at strawweight, Shauna Ormsby coming in at 2-2. She is taking on Macy Brio, making her debut. So, nothing, high level or anything, of course, from Icon. It's only their 5th event. They're very much, at that regional level still, but they are on UFC Fight Pass, so you can check them out. That's where Bella Mir had her first 2 fights. So definitely check that out March 5th on Fight Pass. Then the Beast Championship 1 goes down February 27th somewhere in South Korea. They haven't announced the location yet. Has a pair of strawweight bouts. First up, Yerin Hong takes on In Young Chae. And then also at strawweight, Eunbi Cho taking on Kyorin Kim. This is very much also indicative of a regional scene. At least I think 2 of these fighters have losing records. One is making their debut, so only one of the 4 has a winning record. But, they're all relatively inexperienced as well. And honestly, in the Asian scene, if you don't start off with a losing record, you're almost exceptional. So, next up, UFC signing news. They have signed a Brazilian bantamweight, Josiane Nunes. I hope I pronounced that right. If not, apologies. She has a record of 7-1, fights out of Striker's House in Curitiba, Brazil. Looks to have a nice record. Haven't checked out any of her fights yet, but you know what? Bantamweight needs fighters badly right now. I mean, they're not featherweight level bad, but bantamweight definitely needs all the fighters they can get. And a 7-1 record looks pretty nice, at least on paper so far. We'll have to see. Then CFFC makes their return with CFFC 93 on March 12th. They have a flyweight bout between Jasmine Jasudavicius coming in at 4-1, taking on Ashley Dean coming in at 5-5. So Jasudavicius fought her last fight, went down to strawweight to fight for the vacant title. Had a failed bid there, so she is returning to flyweight and taking on someone with a 500 record, which is indicative of what someone usually takes after a loss. Then UFC 260 goes down March 27th with a strawweight bout between Randa Marcos coming in 10-1. She is welcoming the debuting Luana Pinheiro coming in with a record of 8-1, making her UFC debut after winning the contract on the Contender Series. So you got to feel for Randa Markos. She's just being fed to these, relatively unknown fighters or these straight up contenders and just being used as cannon fodder. It's like, man, if she loses this one, I hope she retires because, why go keep lowering yourself even more just being fed, hungry prospect after hungry prospect. Just doesn't seem very smart, I guess I should say. Then UFC Fight Night on April 10th has a bantamweight bout between Norma Dumont, 5-1. She is taking on Bea Malecki. I think she's like 2-0. Dumont, missed weight pretty bad for her last bout at bantamweight. She had fought featherweight right before that. Hopefully she worked out her weight problems and makes weight okay. Malecki's, kind of big for a bantamweight too. Very tall. Lean, but very tall. And then a Polish event, MMA VIP, goes down on February 13th somewhere in Poland. They have a bantamweight bout between Isabella Badarek, coming in at 8-6, taking on Melanie Gugis. I think it's pronounced Gugis, coming in at 4-8. Not much really to say about that. Two well-traveled European regional level fighters. Let's see. Next to last, Deep Jewels has announced the lineup for their 32nd event, which goes down on Sunday, March 7th. Now, I did a video breaking down the lineup for that. The headlining bout is a strawweight bout between Miki Matono and Seika Izawa. They fought in a non-title bout in December where Izawa, the challenger, came out ahead. So now they're having a rematch, this time for the title. So it'll be interesting to see if Izawa, the much less experienced fighter, can pull a repeat against Miki Matono, the champ, and come away the champion. Also, Deep Jewels announced the participants for their Atomweight Grand Prix, which starts at that same event. The quarterfinals are going to go down then, March 7th, Deep Jewels 32. Did a video exclusively on that. If you want to, please go check that out. And then finally, Quintet Fight Night, number 6, I believe, goes down in... I didn't write down the date, but it goes down in March. That is a team-based grappling event, and they usually have at least one team made up of MMA fighters. This time it's going to be Abe Ani Combat Club representing. It's going to be an all-ladies event, and I've talked about AACC. I just talked about them the other night. Abe Ani Combat Club is like the mecca for lady fighters in East Asia. I mean, they just have so many female fighters for their... I won't call it the Mecca because that has spiritual meanings, implications. We'll say it's like the go-to gym for lady fighters, at least in Japan. But there's other ladies that when they visit Japan will train there as well. So that is it for the news for this past week. So I want to talk about these UFC rankings updates. Now, the updates I'm going to show you are for Monday. So they haven't been updated from Wednesday yet, but these are from Monday. Probably won't see the updated ones again until after this weekend, which there's more fights going on. So at strawweight, looks like they moved Amanda Hebos down from tied at number 9 with Tisha Torres to number 10. Bit unusual of a move because usually they'll move a fighter up if they're about to have a fight, not down. And then at flyweight, somebody got pulled out of the rankings, and they moved Alexa Grasso, who was previously not ranked, into the number 15 spot. So not a whole lot going on with the rankings right now. Now, if you look at flyweight, Araujo is listed at 9, and Modafferi's at 8. I expect them to switch places come Monday. Jessica Ai and Joanne Calderwood are fighting. Depending on those results this weekend, that could change. What else? We'll have to see what else happens after this weekend. So now we talked about the rankings. Let's get into the weekend preview for this weekend. So first up, we're going to One Championship Unbreakable goes down in Singapore. What's today? Thursday. So tomorrow morning goes down, and they have a one atomweight division bout. That's at 115 pounds for One Championship. Mumbo taking on Samara Santos. Let's see. Let's get down into this. Mumbo coming in at 16-5. Santos coming in at 11-7-1. Now, Mumbo is on a 6-fight win streak, hasn't lost since 2017. But then you have Santos coming in. She's won a single bout out of her last 7. So she's 1-6 in her last 7. You know, when people talk about one championship doing a lot of gimme fights, this is not a good look for them, because this is very much a gimme fight for Mumbo. I mean, let's see. Santos mostly has lost by a couple submissions, a couple TKOs there, but she hasn't been active either. So whereas Mumbo has fought, you know, just fought like 2 months ago. Mumbo last fought a year and a half ago, coming off a submission loss to Ayaka Miura. Before that, she got TKO'd by Seong Jin-nan 2 years ago. This has gimme fight written all over it. You know, if you're a betting person, I'm not, but if you are a betting person, bet the house on Mumbo. Then we move on to UFC 257. First up, they have a bantamweight bout between Sarah Mcmahon and Juliana Pena at, I believe I said it's at bantamweight. McMahon coming in 12-5. Pena coming in at 9-4. McMahon coming off a win over Lena Landsberg 11.5 months ago, so just under a year. Before that, had a pair of losses quite a while ago, though, because she took that long break for a pregnancy. Pena, on the other hand, is coming off a submission loss to Jermaine Darandami 3 months ago. Before that, had a win over Nico Montano a year and a half ago. So here you have two fighters who are primarily grapplers. And, you know, the first thing you think of when you got two primarily, you know, wrestlers or grapplers is, man, what are the chances that this turns into a sloppy kickboxing bout? It could. It very well could. You know, Sarah McMahon is mechanically sound as a fighter. Wrestling's good, obviously. You know, freestyle silver medalist back in 2008. She has power in her punches, and she throws them well. But where Sarah McMahon, you know, fails is she has a hard time putting stuff together. And honestly, I think she just lacks a killer instinct. I mean, she has some wins by finish, but to me, I've always thought of her as lacking a bit in killer instinct. Pena, her biggest problem is, man, she pulls out some straight up derps in her bouts. And I mean, she just makes, you know, dumb mistakes and puts herself in bad situations. And she has a hard time getting out of them. Now, McMahon does it too. So this is honestly a battle of, you know, she who derps last will laugh best. So, forced to pick here, I'm going to go with Sarah McMahon. I think she has the tools to put it together. She's got to bring out a killer instinct, though, against Juliana Pena. Doesn't want to get into, you know, a long, drawn-out battle. I think she needs to try to put Pena away. We're going to go with Sarah McMahon to win this one. Then you have the strawweight bout between Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Ribas. Rodriguez coming in 12-1-2. Ribas coming in at 10-1. Rodriguez coming in off the first loss of her career to Carla Esparza via split decision 5 months ago. Before that, had a majority draw against Cynthia Calvillo a little over a year ago. Ribas riding, you know, a 4-fight win streak in the UFC, all within the last year and a half. Most recent win was a submission over Paige Van Zandt in a flyweight bout. This is going to come to how much has Marina Rodriguez worked on her takedown defense, and can Ribas get her down? I don't doubt that Ribas can get Marina Rodriguez down. She's taken down fighters with better takedown defense, like Randa Marcos, I guess would be like the biggest name. And she's completely outworked Randa Marcos on the ground, and Marcos is primarily a ground fighter. Rodriguez, you know, she tends to start slow, and then she picks up as the fight goes on. So now she gets out of the first round. She could pose a problem for Hebos in the second and third round. Depends on how fast she starts working in that second round. I don't think she's going to be able to come on fast enough. Now, if Hebos tries to beat her on the feet, I think she's mentioned that she's going to, try to do that. I would recommend against it. If your opponent has obvious weakness, use the weakness against them. But if Hebos tries to keep the fight on the feet, she could be in trouble. Not that Hebos is a bad striker, but man, Rodriguez, she throws with mean strikes. And her Muay Thai clinch work is very nasty as well. Pick, though, goes to Amanda Hebos. I think she just has more ways to win and has the momentum going into this one, whereas Rodriguez doesn't. So we're going to go with Amanda Hebos to win the Battle of the Brazilians here. And then final ladies fight on the card, a flyweight bout between Jessica Eye and Joanne Calderwood. Eye coming in at 15-8. Calderwood coming in at 14-5. Eye is coming off a loss to Cynthia Calvillo via unanimous decision 7 months ago. Calderwood coming off a loss to Jennifer Maia via armbar 5 months ago. Calderwood, she was the one scheduled to fight that bout, I think. And then, or no, I can't remember. I know one of those two took the fight on short notice, and Calderwood ended up taking a bad loss there, getting submitted in, I think, was it the first round? Yeah, 4 minutes, 29 seconds of the first round. Was not a good look for Calderwood. I don't think she has to worry about getting submitted against Jessica Eye. This has the potential to be boring. It very well could be. Calderwood always wants to talk about, no one ever wants to stand and trade with her. And then as soon as somebody does, they penetrate her, severe lack of striking defense. And then she starts taking them down. I'll take a cue from the guys on the vivisection of Bloody Elbow. People don't give Jessica Eye enough credit, mostly because she's just unlikable. I mean, she's just so cringe. I don't know who's going to win this one. Coin toss. Calderwood. We'll go with Calderwood to win this one. And is that it for... Yes, so that is it for the weekend's fight preview. So, since that's over, I want to go into our last subject, our discussion topic here. I want to talk about consistency in MMA. Consistency is very important for a better overall sport. And I brought up, several categories where I think consistency is important. And, I'm going to give some examples as well. For fighters, obviously, consistency is key for them. They need consistency in their training. If they're slacking off, if they're skipping training, they're being inconsistent. Their training's going to suffer, and then they're going to suffer come fight time. Cardio. Can't slack off on cardio. Got to be consistent with cardio training. There's so many fighters that just have lackluster cardio, and maybe it's not because of training. Maybe it's due to other factors, but man, so many fighters just don't do the road work. They don't hit the road, get those runs in, and it ends up showing a lot of times in the fight. And then training environment. If you're switching up your training environments a lot, going to different gyms all the time, that can really affect you. One of the things that I think was one of the biggest downfalls of, say, Randa Marcos's career was when she stopped going to like one primary gym and just started going to a bunch of different gyms to train in different aspects of the game. There wasn't any real consistency there. There was no consistent MMA training where she was combining all the factors together. So you got to have consistent training environment. And that's why you see a lot of fighters, they'll switch to a gym. Sometimes they'll do really well at that new gym and win their next bout, but sometimes fighters don't win their next bout after switching gyms because they're just not used to that new environment. And then schedule. you know, consistency in your schedule is so important. And that goes beyond fighting too, you know, not just training schedule, not just, you know, their diet schedule, just consistency in their life schedule, sleep, family time. You know, you got to have a good schedule, I think, as a fighter. Otherwise, your life is just going to be in chaos, and, you know, that can lead to a downfall. Then you move into training. Trainers, you know, trainers have to set a good training schedule for their fighters. If they're not setting the schedule, then they're basically leaving the fighters up to come up with their own training, and that's never really a good environment. You know, you got to have a consistent training schedule. Your training's got to be consistent. You got to have like consistent training partners and sparring partners, and that's a trainer's job to bring in those sparring partners. And also, you know, a trainer and a coach has to be there for their fighters. You know, if they're not there when a fighter needs them, then they're an inconsistent trainer, they're an inconsistent coach. You know, a fighter needs their trainer and their coach, and sometimes, you know, they disappear. You know, some trainers just aren't, you know, truly fully professional, or they aren't fully invested in their fighters, and that can really affect their fighter and bring them down. Then the third item on the list, promoters, the promotions. You know, key for them is having a consistent schedule of events. Now, obviously, COVID-19 last year and still running into this year screwed up a lot of events, and it was hard for promoters to come back and put on consistent events. The UFC did it better than anybody. LFA did it in a good way. When championships starting to do it, you know, a lot of fight promotions are starting to come back and put on consistent events. And that is good, not just for your audience, but that's good for the fighters too, because they need to get fights on a consistent basis. So it's good for your audience retention, but it's also good for your fighters, because, you know, they need to get consistent fights in. Otherwise, they're just training for nothing. And, you know, it's hard for them to build up, you know, their brand and everything and move up the rankings and everything. So, yeah, it's important that, you know, promotions don't lag behind on scheduled events. Also, consistent production values are key. You know, if you're constantly trying to change up your production, it looks wacky. Got to have consistency in that. It just doesn't look as good. So production values are key, especially for audience retention. You know, you see a lot of comments online on, like, say, social media and whatnot, talking about, you know, how good a production value is of a certain promotion being important as far as whether or not they'll watch it. Like, a lot of people bag on Bellator's production values. Now, I feel that they've come a long way from the Bjorn Rebney era, where everything was just like dark and drab and gray. So I feel like Scott Coker has done a lot more for the production values of Bellator since then. But yeah, production values are key. Also, matchmaking, consistency in matchmaking. And I understand, you know, promotions are out to make money, and you got to promote certain fighters who are gaining in popularity in order to, you know, make as much money on them that you can while you can. But you got to be consistent in matchmaking. You can't just have fighters sitting out and not giving them matchups either, because otherwise the division are going to suffer. The weight divisions are going to suffer. So you got to have consistency in matchmaking too. You can't just have fighters sitting on the sidelines and not offering them fights while you're offering the same fighters fights all the time, because otherwise you're going to run out of people, you know, fights to make. So consistency in matchmaking is important for a promotion. Commentators. This is a big one, and I think one of the biggest gripes fans have. And this is kind of like an extension on promotions. You could almost have promotions, you know, part 2 on this one. But, you know, just a lot of inconsistency with commentary teams. Like, they'll watch a fight, and fighter A does something really nice, and they're like, oh, God, that was so impressive. But then fighter B does something equally nice and impressive or effective, and they just ignore it and they don't mention it. Or they're still busy talking up fighter A that they just completely talk over what happened that fighter B just did. Or, you know, it also goes into the matter of promotion. Commentators are told to push certain fighters, and it's very inconsistent on who they push and who they don't, when they do it, when they don't. So that's a lot of inconsistencies with commentary teams as well. Also, you got to do it, I think, on a regular basis, being a commentator. Otherwise, your commentary is going to suffer. And a key example of this is Joe Rogan. Now, Joe has been doing it since the 90s or early 2000s. He's been with the sport for years. And honestly, like the past several years, he started to decline a little bit, and people have noticed it. But for me, I think he just went on a straight decline when he basically stopped doing it almost altogether. Now he only does US-based pay-per-views. And I'll tell you what, his commentary has it's just one-liner after one-liner. Oh, he's hurt. He's hurt. Or this is it. This is it. This is it. They're done. And it's just, he's terrible because he's not doing it consistently. And it blows my mind that someone who talks about, the need for his comedy to be at the comedy club, night after night, keeping his chops up, he just completely ignores that with MMA. I mean, he's basically just coming in, phoning it in, and collecting a check. And then you get him and Daniel Cormier together. Cormier does much better when Rogan's not around. You get Rogan and Cormier together, and they're just jerking each other off under the table and cracking jokes with each other and not doing, a good job of commentary. So commentators, you got to be consistent with that. And then finally, talking heads. This goes down to basically, MMA media, the talking heads. And that includes, small channel YouTubers like myself and everything. Got to be consistent there. I'll be honest. I'm not as consistent as I would like to be as far as doing fight reviews. I let the flow lag sometimes. Work gets in the way, but sometimes I just, get lazy about it and I don't keep up with the fight reviews, which is why it's important for me to do the WMA scene report. That way I can at least talk about the fights that happened. But one thing I want to work on this year is, being more consistent as far as fight reviews go, getting them done more often. I still got to do what's today, Thursday? I got to do last night's fights still, or yesterday's. So I got to be more consistent with that. Also, just consistency with behavior too. And this one bugged me. I was going to let this one go, but this was a screen cap I took from a stream. The stream doesn't matter where it was. And by the way, if you're the streamer and you're watching this is nothing against you. I've always been respectful towards you. You block me, but I don't care. That's fine. I don't have a problem with you. But this person here has a channel and said Mcmahon looked like a beast today. And this bothered me because, well, this guy, I reached out and, made a video. When I first discovered his channel, I was like, oh, cool, there's a new WMA channel. Didn't really know much about him. I watched a few of his videos. I thought they were different, So I made a video, and if you go down into the description below, go to receipt 1. That's a link to the timestamp where I promoted his channel. I told people, hey, he's a new channel. Go check him out. See if you like him. I even was honest. I said he's not to my taste personally, but I said, hey, go check him out. See if you like him. Then you go down to receipt number 2. Look at the date. I never interacted with that guy after that, and he made a video insulting me. Just straight up attacking me. Dedicated a whole video to attacking me. Never said anything bad about this guy other than his videos weren't to my taste, but I told people, go check him out. Made a whole video attacking me. So I ignored it. I didn't care. I was like, because he's small and no one was really watching him anyway. But then if you go down to link number 3, receipt 3, he made a second video attacking me. Half of it was dedicated to attacking me, and half of it was dedicated to one of the commenters on his channel who described Valentina Shevchenko as a beast and said, flyweight division isn't ready for this beast. You can go to the video, and I think the comment's still there. Or he definitely showed a screen capture in his video. And went on a tirade against this guy and even accused him of being racist for calling a fighter a beast. But then, this is the same guy calling Manon Fiorot, saying Manon Fiorot looked like a beast today. So how are you going to attack one of your viewers, possibly one of your subscribers, attack them for calling a fighter a beast, and then do the same thing? I was going to let you go for attacking me. But then you just showed total inconsistencies. And you attacked one of your own viewers, which to me, I don't attack my viewers. That's something I don't do. And at least not to my recollection, I haven't. So how are you going to attack one of your own viewers for saying something about a fighter and then say the same thing about a different fighter? I guess because it was about Valentina Shevchenko and you're a fanboy, so you got upset. And then you probably forgot all about that and then went ahead and said this. So how about all I'm saying is show some consistency. Is it okay to call a fighter a beast or is it not? Is it okay to say that about a fighter or is it not? Be consistent. Or, as some people like to say, show the same energy. So, talking heads got to show the same energy as well. Be consistent. So, people say I like to attack other channels. I never attacked this guy before now, even though he attacked me twice, and I was nice to him. So, yeah. Just be consistent. And that goes for fighters. If you're a trainer, promoter, commentator, talking head, media, big or small, mainstream, independent. Just, be consistent. So that is it for my conversation about consistency. We got a couple of comments. Let's go take a look at them. MMA Bet Surgeon, good info and knowledge. More people need to be respecting your knowledge, especially on the women's scheme. Well, thank you, MMA Bet Surgeon. Thank you. Go check out MMA Bet Surgeon's channel. He's a relatively new channel. You're the gentleman that's working with Boon Man, right? Go check out DT3, the Boon Man, as well. Weekly podcast on MMA every Tuesday night. It's a good show so far. Good format. So go check that out. Another one from MMA Bet Surgeon. This is so true. I believe that was talking about the commentators. And then finally, MMA Bet Surgeon. Love the shirt, by the way. Thank you. I actually have both of Angela Hill's shirts. Her other one is like a Muay Thai Yoda, and it says, check the kick you must. So it's pretty funny, but you wouldn't know it was an Angela Hill shirt if you didn't purchase it from Pro Wrestling Tees under Angela Hill's account. But this one I like because it's got, the skull. It says Angela Hill. Got her nickname. Got the afro with the afro pick. So definitely, yeah, I like this shirt a lot. And I like Angela Hill. I wish she was more consistent in her fights. But definitely a fan of Angela Hill. Let's see. I appreciate it. Yes, sir. Every Tuesday, man. I appreciate it. Would love to have you on at one point. Yeah, I'm definitely down for that too. Definitely going to start doing more collaborations this year. Haven't set it on the schedule yet, but I talked to John Young Ko of Kumite TV. Going to be having the second edition of the WMMA Q&A. It's going to be the Asian edition because John lives and works in Asia, is a paid member of the MMA media, works for SCMP MMA, covers the Asian scene. So we're going to be doing on January 31st at 7 p.m. WMMA Q&A Asia edition. Want to get one for my buddy yet? Yeah, Pro Wrestling Tees, TEES.com. They actually have a bunch of fighters, and I believe like a large percentage, if not all of it, of the purchases go straight to the fighter or pro wrestler. So it's like their own store within a store, and they get like most, I think like 80 or 90% of the proceeds go straight to the fighter. So if you get one for Angela Hill, she's going to get most of the money. And then hit her up on social media when you do, because she'll show her appreciation. Yeah, 1 or 2 fights could have gone either way with her. Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, Angela Hill. You know, I think she could have beat Watterson had she paced herself better. You know, she wasn't prepared for a 5-round fight, so she fought basically for a 3-round fight. And then I think she was running out of energy by the 3rd round, and that's what allowed Watterson to take over. So she definitely could have beat Watterson, and definitely could have beat Gedalia too. Gedalia, I think she got robbed in that one, definitely. Awesome, love supporting the fighters. Yeah, definitely. I like to say, you know, the best way to support a fighter is, you know, purchase their gear. If they're purchase their sponsored items, if they have like a discount code for, you know, an item for a sponsor on their social media, and it looks like something you want to try it out and use, you know, their discount code, lets them know. Or if they have even if all you see is a fighter sharing a sponsored post on, like, say, Instagram, they're getting money for that sponsored post. So the more likes they get, the better they look to that sponsor for future sponsored posts. So even just giving a simple like helps them out. But, you know, and one way you can do, and I've talked about this before with like smaller fighters, sponsor them directly. Just say, hey, even if you're just a regular, you know, fan, and you're like, hey, I'd like to sponsor you for your fight. How can I help you out? You know, send them what you can, if you can, and that goes a long way towards their costs, and they'll appreciate it a lot. Just don't ask. I mean, you got to understand that if you're going to sponsor a fighter and you're just a fan sending money, you got to understand you're not guaranteed anything in return. Like, if you're a company sponsoring a fighter, you're expecting, you know, them to represent your stuff and get something in return. But if you're sponsoring them independently, then you can't necessarily expect anything in return, and you really shouldn't. So, but for regular viewers, if they want to support fighters, then yeah, definitely I recommend it. I haven't sponsored any fighters yet. I've thought about it, but maybe this coming year we'll figure one out and sponsor her. But yeah, it looks like definitely went longer than I thought I would. That's really all I have for tonight. Wanted to talk about consistency. Got some good fights to look forward to this weekend on UFC. Was it 257? The one championship bout. That's tomorrow morning. That's, you can watch the replay. I mean, it's pretty much expected who's going to win. But definitely got some fights to look forward to. Keep an eye out, January 31st, the WMA Q&A Volume 2 Asia Edition. And definitely going to working on some things for this year for the channel. What's up? You just didn't finish up, unfortunately. Anyway, that's all I have for episode 85 of the WMA Scene Report. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Yes, Marion Fierro definitely does look like a force to be reckoned with. Time will tell. We'll have to see. Like I said, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you're watching this on the replay, like the video, give it a like. If not, hit the dislike. It still promotes the video either way. It still shows viewer interaction. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to WMMA Scene Now, the most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.